Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and the guy who should be working on Plastic Addict. Incoming random review in 3, 2, 1.
Before we begin, thank you very much to Anthony P. for joining the Patreon campaign. Very appreciated. Thank you so much for the support and the help. Means the world to me. So, rather than give you a long explanation about what else is going on and the whole Patreon thing, we need to jump straight into the review because this review is Patreon sponsored. If you are on my highest tier, you can make a request once in a while, and someone requested me review some form of Ginrai toy. And I toyed with the idea of doing it with the G1, but I only have Power Master Prime. Ginrai has different features. The Ginrai I do own, however, is the Takara Legends version. So we're going to talk about this particular version of Power Master Prime today. And you'll find out that sometimes Takara doesn't always get it right as opposed to Hasbro. So for starters, this is an extensive, and I mean like incredibly extensive retool of the Ultra Magnus from Combiner Wars. So you're going to see familiar elements like the cab section, which is just straight up a repaint of that version of the toy. You're also going to see a few other fallacies in the engineering because of the nature of the retooling job. We'll get to that in a bit. For now, let's just focus on the fact that it's not a bad recreation of the look of Power Master Optimus Prime at the heart. You know, it's got the same grays and reds and blues, and it definitely does strike the original fairly well. You know, if you even recall the original Power Master Prime, even the section of the trailer done up in red is technically accurate because of how it dealt with the Super Mode's arms in that design. So this is not terribly far off, even though, yes, it's definitely not exactly the same, but it is close. It's close enough to get the job done, right? You can definitely still see some Ultra Magnus in there, especially with things like the little booster thing, rocket, whatever you want to imagine them to be. They're still there. But as you can see, yeah, it's not a bad job. Back end looks pretty clean, all solid and all that, so that's not too bad. At the front, there is a little bit of strangeness there. Completely open. Because, yes, the trailer is 100% hollow. Being a Magnus, the trailer is supposed to be hollow. We're using panels to cover it up to make it look like a solid truck trailer now. You can get playful with this, at least. It is wide enough for some small-ish Autobots to hide in there. If you want a really weird sneak attack thing where Optimus Prime, like, jackknifes himself in truck mode so someone can launch forward instead out of him. At the very least, it's a playful thing, right? So we'll go with that. I guess I should take a close-up look at some of this stuff so you can kind of see what's going on. Lots of nice paint going on in the front end of the vehicle. The windows are painted in this nice kind of metallic powder blue, which looks really good for windows and makes me wish all windows were done like that. Hint, hint, Hasbro. You'll note, not any clear plastic on this thing whatsoever. Thank you, Takara. You can see the silver trim around the edge goes all the way to the front as well. The grille, the headlights, the bumper, all done up in a lovely shade of silver. That same silver decorates the inside of the wheels as well. And that will also go for the wheels in the back. So I'm so used to the wheels not being treated or painted at all these days. It's a breath of fresh air to look back at an older toy and go, oh yes, the days when we had paint budget. Along the side, we have kind of a simple take on the Optimus Prime trailer sticker, blue with a white going through the center. Tiny little Autobot symbol. I would have liked that to have been a little bit bigger, but you know what? Whatever. It's not bad. Like, I'm splitting hairs here. You're going to get a little blue painted in there as well. Why? I don't know. But hey, a little bit of blue. I mean, technically, I think the original did have blue there. If I can't remember the color layout of the original. Man, it's been a while. Nevertheless, some blue. And then around the back, you've got a lot of detailing. It's going to be more relevant in the robot mode once we get to it. So for play value on this mode, well, you've got 10 wheels that all roll well. So you got that going for you. The cannons all have their own placements as well. You can obviously rearrange them however you want. But this is like the default. Let me go ahead and we'll start removing these so you can see a clean look at the whole thing. Goes out. Take the double barrel ones out. The double barrel, because this was around the... Remember, this is a retool of the Power Master. This is technically a retool of the Power Master Optimus Prime from Titan's Return, which was a retool of the Khmer War Ultra Magnus. Which does mean you have these double barrel cannons that can fit Titan Masters if you want to have that play pattern as well. For that play pattern, you're also going to spot, you got pegs here on the top of the cab that they can ride on, as well as pegs up here at the top. You're going to see more pegs along the sides here, which isn't too relevant to this mode, but give me a minute. And then 2 more here as well. So if you can figure out ways of using those, be my guest. You got more up here too. And of course, mirrored on the other side. Oh, and if that's not enough, we got more up here. You got tons of places. You got tons of places for these guys to ride in. So lots of play value for your Titan Return fans. Now, if I've got an issue with the vehicle mode, it mostly comes from having to transform the toy from robot back into the vehicle, because structurally it's not all that sound. Remember, everything is supposed to be hollow because it was originally Ultra Magnus. So if I wanted to like start like squeezing some things together in order to like shore up some of the connections, sometimes like things can fall apart. Like it's real easy to just kind of push this in, and then you have to kind of undo the whole thing just to get it resituated. Yeah, I really wish there was something inside that just kind of like flipped up during transformation just to go like, just hold the roof. Just hold the roof in place so this thing can't easily collapse. And so the connections feel more solid. But beyond that, yeah, the vehicle mode, it's passable. Considering they had to do as a retool, it's fine. Now, transformation. Now, this thing does technically have a base mode. And I hate the base modes, but the original Power Master had it, so I guess we need to do something with it. You'll actually excuse me. Even though this is a very simple mode, I might not remember exactly how to get it into that mode because I never really mess with it. So you'll excuse me if I fumble through this a little bit or jump cut to the point where it actually looks a little bit more correct. So I'm going to undo a lot of these little tabs that hold the trailer together. And as soon as possible, I'm going to split the arms down. And I'm going to hinge them all the way out. And they have to point upward for this mode. Then those panels have to go all the way up to be kind of a tower emplacement. The legs, we have to split and rotate. And as long as things don't get hung up, we have to split and rotate. There we go. That's better. For this to work, we need to get all those parts hinged over like so. All right, get it to this point. All that folds outward, and then hinge all that down to basically make some kind of platform like that underneath. Make sure that's extended like so, and then we're going to repeat it on the other side. So, right, collapse like that. Fold this section out, fold that little piece like so. Get that out of the way, fold that down, fold that back. That I'm going to rotate like so, and that is going to be about as, yeah, that's about where we're going to take that. So that is going to be your base mode, which is supposed to be somewhat akin to the original Power Master Primes, obviously, but what it can do is kind of limited. There's no like ramps like the original one had. There's no central platform a transformer can just roll onto. I mean, obviously, a base mode like this is mostly left to your interpretation and your imagination. So if you want this thing to actually be well armed, you can start adding the guns to it, or you can take guns from someone else and start adding those on. If you want it to be more solid, I'm sure there's other ways you can kind of fan mode that. As it stands, it is kind of typical of base modes in that, well, modern base modes, in that there really isn't any dedicated engineering specifically to that mode. It just kind of feels like they took what makes up the robot and then just stopped halfway through and said, well, that's as close to the base as it's going to look. A little bit frustrating, a little bit disappointing, because I can actually remember liking the base mode for Power Master Prime as a kid. I thought it was fun, you know? But this, aside from a lot of points where you can start putting Titan Masters, yeah, that's just, I don't know. I find it really, really lacking. It's just the kind of base mode I hate. It just doesn't seem to do anything different. It's just like a half-transformed robot. So you'll excuse me if I start transforming it the rest of the way. Starters, I'm going to get that out of the way, and we're going to get the legs transformed correctly. Rotate those down like so. All right, so here's the fun part. The most complex transformation on this entire toy is in the ankles, strangely enough. So, gonna rotate all of this and fold this up. That's gonna be our foot, strangely enough. So as long as it folds up like this, you're good. So there's a double hinge in there that's gonna clamp down here in order to shore that up. That is your ankle spur. You know, your yeah, you get it. You get what I'm trying to say. Here, and that panel, make sure that's tabbed. There we go. Back over to this side. Get that out of the way. Get this double hinge folded down. Fold it down. Rotate. Up we go. Down. Close it up. Find the tabs. There we go. Okay, let's do the upper body, which is not quite as cumbersome. Lift them like so in order to break them apart, and then rotate around. After that's done, push the rear section of the truck in, and then push it up so it goes flush to the back, and then fold the whole thing down like so. All right, midsection locks up underneath it just like that. Before we clamp the front on, let's handle the arms. You can see have gone extendo here for the sake of the ramps, or the panels rather. Push those closed. Shorter section folds up first, and then the longer section, it's not going to fold up all the way. That's correct, so don't worry about that. Fold down, slide in, fold like that. That's fully transformed. All right. Now for the chest. Let's get this cracked open. You're going to have that little panel. Go ahead and fold that down, get it out of the way. And then Prime's head is going to be folded up all the way inside. Flip that up like so. This side in first, so that side can close over top of it. Make sure everything is solidly connected, and then push that torso into place. There's going to be some, kind of like lasagna looking tabs over here, like a zipper. You can see them over here. It's a little bit hard because the red really wants to get washed out by the color, by the light, but make sure those are interlocked correctly in order to get them as stable as possible. And make sure everything in the legs is as firm as it's going to get before I attempt to stand this guy up. You'll see my trepidation once we start talking about him. But yeah, that's going to be Ginrai in the robot mode. And I'm going to have to readjust the camera in order for you guys to really see what's going on here. Oh, this is going to be a little bit treacherous. Let me see if I can do some balance correcting. And then, yeah, this is... All right. So I got to pull back the camera here to make sure I get the whole thing in view, because he is a tall boy. All right. So, Super Ginrai in robot mode. So, obviously, upgrade of Power Master Optimus Prime, a modernization of how that toy looks. And in doing that, he looks quite awesome. The transformation, however, does have some weirdness to it. To go straight from vehicle to robot, you're going to have some much more cumbersome times with things like the ankles. And obviously, things like the panels underneath the arms are really unsatisfying. But you do what you have to do to make it work. So the overall look of him does strike me very much as Power Master Optimus Prime, or Super Ginrai, if you will. So ultimately, yeah, it does look the part. So, let me show you the head sculpt on him. It's a little bit hard to see. Let me move a light so you can kind of see this a little bit better. So, it definitely has the look of Power Master Optimus Prime. It's got all the extra details that the original one had. So that is done really well. I think they made a miscalculation here in that the eyes are so deep in there because this is still ultimately a Titan's Return toy. Instead of actually gutting that gimmick and just giving us a normal Optimus Prime head, you actually can work within that gimmick. So he does have an actual Titan Master, which we can remove, and we can unfold to reveal Haikyuu, his original Power Master, now redone as a Titan Master. So it's a cute little homage to the original minifigure and the original version of Ginrai. Remember, that's how the old one worked in Japan. But yeah, it's a neat little thing. It's a neat little thing to do. I don't think it's entirely necessary because it does lead to like a default, like a defect rather in the overall super mode head, in that the eyes don't really show very well. But it does mean you can play with a Titan Master play pattern here if you so wish. So, we will pop this back on. I forgot how stubborn it was as a Titan Master, so give me a second. You'll excuse me, give me a second here. There we go. Go ahead and close the head back up, and now we just have another Super Mode Optimus head once more. Alright, so the toy itself, yes, the robot mode does look really, really nice. A lot of the bulk ends up pretty much where it was in the original Super Ginrai Power Master Prime. Strangely enough, even the rear section of the original truck mode, because that's basically where it ends up on the original toy. There's just a panel behind it made up of parts of the trailer. So ironically, that's actually not too far off from where it would actually be. So interesting little thing, considering it's a leftover from Magnus. You can see all the panels have been folded up on the back of his arms or the back of his legs. Typical way you have to deal with panel arrangement on these toys. But yeah, like overall, it's not a bad job. It's clean, is what it is. And you can see we've added a few paint apps to it. It's got the blue hands, which Ginrai had, Power Master Prime did not. We've added a little bit of this depth look. What was just like big, like engine block detail on Power Master Prime has become something more akin to how the original one looked with the extra windows on the sides. And then, yeah, the feet. The feet are the big issue for me. Number one, they don't look great. They don't look great. They don't really stick out very far, as it's hard to really like view them as feet. The big problem with the toy, and why I was so like hesitant to review this in the first place, are the heel spurs and the way that the feet fold out on a double hinge. Nothing in there clicks together very solidly, and it's prone to collapsing, especially if you have God Bomber attached to it. And the biggest problem for me is the heel spurs. If you notice, they hinge this way, which means they really don't do that great of a job at holding up the weight. Now, there is a screw in there you can tighten, but that shouldn't be necessary for something like this. If it folded out from the bottom and like locked into this position, they'd work fine as heel spurs and his balance would be fine. But because they kind of went weird with the engineering and how overcomplicated the transformation of the foot is, does leave you with a problem of a toy that is very easy to fall over. I'm being very careful with this, and I freshly tightened up the screws, but as soon as they loosen up, it's going to give me a problem. It's the reason why I don't own God Bomber anymore, because this thing would constantly fall over when it was attached. So, it's a pretty big defect on the toy. Let me go into articulation so you can at least see what we got going on there. So the head does rotate all the way around, even though it has the Titan Master gimmick, so that's pretty well done. Arms move all the way around. You can hear a bit of a ratcheting in there. Arms move out like so. There's a little panel on the side that lets you move the arms even farther out without interference, which is cool. The bicep rotation works, but that extra kibble on the back of the arm does get in the way of some positions. 90-degree elbow. You have a wrist rotation that's 360. Nothing at the waist, unfortunately, which is weird because I feel like it could be cut right there, and it actually should work. Does not, so no waist. universal hips, though. And they do have kind of a detent ratcheting to them. Thighs work well. Thigh rotation, 360. Knee bend, not quite 90. Not quite 90. And then, yeah, he's got back and forth on the ankle. He's got left and right on the ankle. But you can see how easily this moves. This is part of the problem, especially with such a big, heavy toy. So you can pose him pretty well. Whether or not he will stand in that pose is sometimes a matter of luck and praying to Primus. Let's see if I can get him to stand it. Nope. I was going to see if can I get him to stand in any combat pose? Can I get him to stand into any, like... No. As soon as his center of weight is not directly above his ankles, everything falls apart. So no, I cannot pose him for the end shot of the review. You know what I can do, though? You know what I can do? I can give him his armaments. You got 5mm ports on the top of both forearms for extra weaponry. These will work too, I believe. Never mind. I thought they did. Hands obviously work as well. You got 5mm ports at the ankles if you want to put the cannons there. I prefer them in the more traditional spots up here on the shoulders. Obviously, these guns also have a bunch of 5mm pegs, so you can attach on, combine weapons, and all that. These rifles are way too small. The Powermaster Prime I know had these gigantic black rifles, and these are just kind of piddly little sticks with handles. You can combine them like so in order to get one gigantic rifle, if that is your choice. There's no there's no like Titan Master connections from what I can see, so it doesn't really work the way some of the others do, but it lets you combine the weapons if you so choose. I prefer Powermaster Optimus Prime looking like he's just ready for war with as many guns out as possible, so even though they're on the small side, we're going to keep those in his hands. Can I at least get you to stand up long enough to do the outro for this review? Can I? Can I do it? Oh, almost. Come on. There we go. So that, my friends, is Legends Super Ginrai. And it is not what I was hoping it would be. So the remolding on it is pretty okay. So somehow that came undone too. That's not great. I'm trying to close out the review. Don't start breaking transformation on me now. So yeah, visually it's very impressive. On a retooling scale, the idea that they got an Ultra Magnus to look like Powermaster Optimus Prime and a modernized version of how that toy looked is super impressive. That part I can enjoy. What I cannot enjoy is the fallacy of the engineering. It's just way too overcomplicated in the wrong spots, and yet still not very well thought out. If the heel spurs rotated the opposite direction, this wouldn't be an issue. If they locked into place when they're all the way down, this wouldn't be an issue. But it is. And it means that you have an incredibly cool toy with some decent posability for its size that can't do anything with it. Combine that with some stability issues for the trailer in vehicle mode and an overall disappointing base mode, you've got something of an incomplete package, which is really rare out of a Takara re-engineering job. Now, there is a 2-pack of Ginrai and God Bomber that did fix the ankle issues, and it is far more secure to stand up, which does fix its major flaw, but that doesn't mean it's without issue. It's the kind of toy where I feel like it's done to check a box, but it really was not made to be Powermaster Prime, and obviously they could do so much better than this. So hopefully they do another go around and we get some better attempt at it down the line. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. This thing's expensive on the aftermarket, so reviews like this are kind of good to give you as much knowledge as possible. And of course, Patreon paid for it, so we had to do it. But at least it's out there, and at least a few more people might know what has gone wrong with this toy. So thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.